Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby Main. Just caught a touchdown from the bay.
And right here in the United States, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. One of them, NYPD officer Edward Byrne, was executed while protecting a key witness in a drug case in 1988. It was a contract killing of a cop.
We'll look at one American community. We picked a neighborhood on the front lines of the drug war. That's the issue most Americans say is their number one concern. It dramatizes the vanishing rule of law in America, the loss of faith in our institutions and future, and our political failure to cope. What we found here is a gulf. Where people live, the rhetoric of politics these days.
The sources who are familiar with the case say Mason thought murdering a New York City cop would please his friend Nichols because Nichols was angry over receiving a 25-year sentence on the weapons charges just the day before. The sources say that the murder, in fact, angered Nichols because he believes that was the event that brought down the full weight of both the state and federal governments on his organization, his family, and ultimately himself.
This is South Jamaica, Queens, a working-class community nestled between New York City's Kennedy and LaGuardia airports. There are places like it all over America. Just down the road from Archie Bunker's all-in-the-family neighborhood, South Jamaica drew middle-income blacks looking for a better life. Most people here have jobs, pay taxes, and own their homes, on blocks made for kids and bikes on summer afternoons. But to live in South Jamaica is to see another side of America.
WCBS News Time is 8:21, 39 degrees in New York. A little boy has been killed in a fire in South Jamaica, Queens this morning. We're going live to Queens and WCBS Newsman Jim Asendio.
Neighbors and residents say crack dealers tried to take over the house, and when the residents fought back, the crack dealers began a war of terror that ended with this morning's fire.
Grandmother in Queens reportedly was killed in apparent retribution for testifying before a grand jury about a shootout that she saw, even after the police were notified. Police officer was murdered in New York City this morning.
Death after death recorded in passing news briefs. But this one last winter drew national attention.
On a Queens street.
Patrolman Edward Byrne, 22 years old, was assigned to protect a witness whose house had been firebombed, a witness in a drug case.
A Queens grand jury is going to convene tomorrow to consider the case against 4 young men accused of executing rookie cop Edward Byrne. He was gunned down while guarding a witness in a drug case. It happened in Jamaica, Queens, the same neighborhood where 3 of the 4 suspects grew up, the same neighborhood where Dorothy Lucy spent her day.
Cops on the run, criminals running from them. It's just another Sunday in South Jamaica. The police ran a check on this car. It came up a 16, a stolen vehicle. The man tried to take the car in front of 6 cops. The cops won. But in this part of Queens, the cops don't always win.
This area, mostly drugs probably from what I see. But you have a little bit of everything, robbery, burglary, and just as you saw, stolen cars.
How bad is this place?
I'd say it's bad.
Welcome to the 40s Project. 2 of the men accused of shooting police officer Ed Byrne grew up here. Some people call it the largest crack house in the city. It's 5 blocks of projects, drugs, and crime. It's a place that even frightens cops.
I get scared, but I have to do my job as a police officer.
The officers say they like many of the people here, especially the kids. But here, even the kids know the language of the crack dealers.
They said, "What's up?" And I said, "Nothing, no."
Is that what they say?
Yo, we back. Shit got Popalot. So a lot of mob shit going on. We on our way to NYC with it. Stop playing. Y'all see who we talking about. Meet us in Jamaica, Queens. But not the new Jamaica. We talking about the crack era. Nigga, this shit foul. Now, depending on how long y'all been following this mob tie shit, you would know that we covered pretty much every notable gangster, every notable hustler to come out of most of the cities in the nation. It's a few we might have missed here and there, but we definitely gonna get to them. But depending on how long you've been tuned into this real trail spill shit, you would know that we suffered an unfortunate set of circumstances back in 2018 when our entire channel got wiped down. Still a little confused as to how that shit happened, but I was almost forced to retell the story of guys whose story I felt like I told before. And that's going to be the case of the guy that we talking about today. And that person is going to be none other than Howard Pappy Mason. Now, if you're in tune with any kind of street shit on any kind of level, you definitely know who Pappy Mason was. But certain gangsters have names and have reputations that extend way further than the streets. And as the case of a lot of hustlers from the 1980s or the crack era, that's definitely going to be the case with Pappy Mason. I'm actually going to go out on a limb to say he is probably the gangster that has been immortalized the most through the music of certain rappers. And in his case, especially Nas, with him calling Queens home. Nas would go on to reference him upwards of 4 times on 3 separate albums: Illmatic in 94, Godson in 2002, as well as Street Disciple in 2004. Queensbridge legend, who we first heard about through Nas, Cormega, will also go on to show love to Pappy Mason on the song I Rep NYC, where he would go on to say, "My feet stand on pavement, once felt by Pappy Mason." And even one time Nas' rival, Jay-Z, would go on to reference him on the Best of Both World albums, saying that he's the combination of Pappy Mason and Larry Davis, Martin and Malcolm. This is bigger than the album. Then you would also have the infamous 50 Cent line in Ghetto Quran, where he would say, "I used to idolize Cat. Hurt me in my heart to hear that nigga switched on Pap." How he go out like that? But with Pappy Mason being the main person that people deem responsible with bringing down Fat Cat's organization from the inside due to what I would call today as questionable decision making. Some people wouldn't feel like 50. Now, I remember my uncle, who would have been about 60 now or so, RP Uncle Mo, first telling me a story about this guy named Pappy Mason. Now, my Uncle Mo did a lot of time in jail. Matter of fact, all my uncles did a lot of time in jail, but specifically my Uncle Mo would come home and he would tell us these stories. And I distinctively remember Pappy Mason because, shit, you don't forget a name like that. But I also remember Corley Wall, him speaking of, and some other people. But in reference to Pappy Mason, the shit was just wild listening to my uncle explain him to me, because he would reference him as some sort of jujitsu, kickboxing, karate expert type nigga. And I still remember him telling these stories to this day, because half of me wanted to laugh, but the other half of me was fascinated because I just knew he not the type of dude, and this is not no shit that you can make up. And as the years would go by and I would do my research, and this is long before mob ties, I would truly find out who the legend of Pappy Mason really was. Now, in the effort to do something different, I'm not going to go too much into his well-known relationship with Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols, who, depending on who you ask, some people would say that he was a bodyguard, he was an enforcer, he was a partner, he was a worker. But I'm sure we're all aware about the close relationship that them two once shared. Nor will I go into the murder of rookie Officer Edward Byrne, as I am fully convinced, and it is my belief, that he is the most documented and talked about slain police officer in the history of the police department ever. But what I am going to talk about a little bit deeper is the B-Boys gang that Pappy Mason was credited with being the leader of. Based on most of the information I've seen, the B-Boys gang was mostly located in the famed 40 projects in Queens. It would also be said that Pappy Mason would be given that spot inside of the 40 projects by Fat Cat. Now, the formation of that crew was said to take place at right around 1984 or 1985-ish. And some of the members are said to have been a guy by the name of Charles Shaka Davis, another guy by the name of Philip Marshall Copeland, Todd Scott, Marty Howell, Sean Cobb. It was said that they was a really small gang, only a handful of guys. They would wear leather jackets that said Bebo's on it. A lot of them, like Pappy Mason, would wear dreads. And some people even claim that the name Bebo's came from Pappy Mason's love of Jamaican culture, which in an interview, Charles Shaka Davis, who was an admitted member of the Bebo's gang, as well as somebody that was born in 40 projects, said that they would pretty much talk in Jamaican, which is not a thing because Jamaicans have an accent and they use some sort of broken language, which kind of makes it sound like another language. But according to Shaka, members of the Bebos would attempt to talk just like the Jamaicans in the efforts to conceal what they were talking about from law enforcement officials. Pappy Mason's mother would also get swooped up in his business when she was also indicted when police would try to say that she would try to keep the organization going while he was arrested. Authorities would find a large amount of crack cocaine in her Brooklyn residence, crack cocaine that admitted Bebo's member Shaka would say in the interview belonged to Pappy Mason's girlfriend at the time, saying that she had left a bag at his mom's house, and the authorities coincidentally raided the house, finding that bag. No matter how that played out, his mom would be facing a 10-year prison sentence. She would take the case to trial and end up having to do 8 of those 10 years. Most people say that February 26, 1988 was the day that brought down Fat Cat's organization. It was said that it didn't get real hectic until summer or August of 1988 when they would identify and arrest the 4 suspects in the Edward Byrne killing, with multiple of the men living in the 40 projects. Pappy Mason, who was serving time at Comstock at the time, would eventually end up getting a life sentence when the full force of the government would come down on him for the Burns murder, which would result in Fat Cat testifying against him once they threatened and locked up his mother and some of his other family members. But like I said, when I did the first Pappy Mason episode, I believe the entire crack game died in the city of New York on February 26, 1998, because that's when the government was not playing anymore. Everything was on Front Street. That essentially created the formation of TNT, or the Technical Narcotics Team, a blue van that I remember seeing so much at 2947 West 23rd Street, at Cary Gardens in Coney Island. And after that day, it essentially changed the game forever. Now, I want to apologize to everybody that was sending me requests to redo this Pappy Mason episode or requesting Pappy Mason. I had to do this one for y'all. Now, if it's anybody else that I forgot that I've previously covered that we don't have an episode for on the channel, y'all get in the comment box, let me know. If it's somebody I missed, y'all let me know. I'm trying to tap into every city, so if it's something going down in your city, or if it's somebody I don't know about from the other side of your city, just tap in with me. Y'all hit me on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And I'm going to do my best to get all of these stories told. Every gangster, every city, every state will be represented. It's a whole lot of mob shit going on. Shit got Popalot. Mob.